man, as the visionary beside the artist, as the man needing comfort beside the comforted, as the man given to exaggeration and distrust beside the man of reason, as the crank and self-tormentor, as the foolish, enraptured, blessedly unfortunate, sincerely immoderate man, as the pretentious and awkward man, and altogether as the "untamed man." It was thus that Goethe conceived and characterized him, Goethe, the exceptional German, for whom a music of equal rank has not yet been found. Finally, let us consider whether the present continually extending contempt of melody and the stunting of the sense of melody among Germans shall not be understood as a democratic impropriety and an after effect of the Revolution. For melody has such an obvious delight in conformity to law, and such an aversion of everything evolving, unformed, and arbitrary, that it sounds like a note out of the ancient European regime, and as a seduction and reduction back to it. 104. The tone of the German language. We know whence the German originated, which for several centuries has been the universal literary language of Germany. The Germans, with their reverence for everything that came from the court, intentionally took the chancery style as their pattern in all that they had to write, especially their letters, records, wills, etc. To write in the chancery style, that was to write in court and government style. That was regarded as something select, compared with the language of the city in which a person lived. People gradually drew this inference, and spoke also as they wrote. They thus became still more select in the forms of their words, in their choice of their terms and modes of expression, and finally also in their tones. They affected a court tone when they spoke, and the affectation at last became natural. Perhaps nothing quite similar has ever happened elsewhere. The predominance of the literary style over the talk, and the formality and affectation of an entire people became the basis of a common and no longer dialectical language. I believe that the sound of the German language in the Middle Ages, especially after the Middle Ages, was extremely rustic, vulgar. It has ennobled itself somewhat during the last centuries, principally because it found necessary to imitate so many French, Italian and Spanish sounds, and particularly on the part of the German and Austrian nobility, who could not at all content themselves with their mother tongue. But notwithstanding this practice, German must have sounded intolerably vulgar to Montaigne, and even to Racine. Even at present, in the mouths of travellers among the Italian populace, it still sounds very coarse, sylvan, and hoarse, as if it had originated in smoky rooms and outlandish districts. Now I notice that at present a similar striving after selectness of tone is spreading among the former admirers of the chancery style, and that the Germans are beginning to accommodate themselves to a particular "witchery of sound," which might in the long run become an actual danger to the German language. For one may seek in vain for more execrable sounds in Europe. Something mocking, cold, indifferent, and careless in the voice, that is what at present sounds "noble" to the Germans, and I hear the approval of this nobleness in the voices of young officials, teachers, women and tradespeople. Indeed, even the little girls already imitate this German of the officers, for the officers, and in fact the Prussian officer, is the inventor of these tones, this same officer, who as soldier and professional man possesses that admirable tact for modesty which the Germans as the whole might well imitate, German professors and musicians included. But as soon as he speaks and moves, he is the most immodest and inelegant figure in old Europe, no doubt unconsciously to himself. And unconsciously also to the good Germans, who gaze at him as the man of the foremost and most select society, and willingly let him "give them his tone." And indeed, he gives it to them. In the first place, it is the sergeant majors and non-commissioned officers that imitate his tone and coarsen it. One should note the roars of command with which the German cities are absolutely surrounded at present, when there is drilling at all the gates. What presumption, furious imperiousness, and mocking coldness speaks in this uproar! Could the Germans actually be a musical people? It is certain that the Germans martialise themselves at present in their tone of their language. It is probable that, being exercised to speak martially, they will finally write martially also. For habituation to definite tones extends deeply into the character. People soon have the words and modes of expression, and finally also the thoughts which just suit these tones. Perhaps they already write in the officer's style. Perhaps I only read too little of what is at present written in Germany to know this. But one thing I know all the surer: the German public declarations, which also reach places abroad, are not inspired by German music, but just by that new tone of tasteless arrogance, almost in every speech of the foremost German statesman. And even when he makes himself heard through his imperial mouthpiece, there is an accent which the ear of a foreigner repudiates with aversion, but the Germans endure it, they endure themselves. 105. The Germans as Artists. When once a German actually experiences passion, and not only, as usual, the mere inclination to it, he then behaves just as he must do in passion, and does not think further of his behaviour. The truth is, however, that he then behaves very awkwardly and uglily, and as if destitute of rhythm and melody, so that onlookers are pained or moved thereby, but nothing more, unless he elevates himself to the sublimity and enrapturedness of which certain passions are capable. Then even the German becomes beautiful. The perception of the height at which beauty begins to shed its charm even over Germans, raises German artists to the height, to the supreme height, and to the extravagances of passion. They have an actual profound longing, therefore, to get beyond, or at least to look beyond the ugliness and awkwardness, into a better, easier, more southern, more sunny world. And thus their convulsions are often merely indications that they would like to dance. These poor bears, in whom hidden nymphs and satyrs, and sometimes still even higher divinities, carry on their game. (106) Music as Advocate. I have a longing for a master of the musical art, said an innovator to his disciple, that he may learn from me my ideas and speak them more widely in his language. I shall thus be better able to reach men's ears and hearts, for by means of tones one can seduce men to every error and every truth. Who can refute a tone? You would therefore like to be regarded as irrefutable? Said his disciple. The innovator answered, I should like the germ to become a tree. In order that a doctrine may become a tree, it must be believed in for a considerable period. In order that it may be believed in, it must be regarded as irrefutable, Storms and doubts and worms and wickedness are necessary to the tree, that it may manifest its species and the strength of its